Bart Crow is a legend in the Texas country music scene, almost as much of a legend as Dale Brisby is in the rodeo scene. Now, he was in the Army. He also did a little rodeo, and all in addition to music. We're going to hear all about it. Awesome guy and a great friend of mine, Bart Crow, who enjoys a ranch fuel with me, that he not only enjoys it because of the taste and the energy it gives him, but also because he got it for 15% off when he used code DALE on ranchfuel.com. And right now, they've also got 30% off and free shipping. Those discount codes are stackable. Use code DALE for Ranch Fuel. And don't forget to check out rodeotime.com. Let's hear more from Bart Crow.
And the funny thing about Ring is I wrote it in 03, and I used to play it at shows, but it didn't really get any gravitational pull till probably about 2 or 3 years later. As I was going through my neck and back surgeries all the times that we were up there.
Yeah, tell me about those. What happened?
Man, you know, when you're pretty much Rambo, things catch up. He tells me all the time that one record that I did in 18 that didn't do so hot, he goes, did you feel honest about it? I'm like, no, I felt like I was making the producer I used at the time's record with my songs. He goes, that's why it didn't work. He said, music is honest.
Would you like a ranch fuel?
Absolutely, I would love a ranch fuel.
That's a pretty popular flavor. You name it. Orange cream.
I might try orange cream.
Yeah.
Because I'm 14.
That's a crowd favorite. I like the agave lime, so.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, no worries. Man, thanks for making the trip.
Are you kidding me? Thank you.
We've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Well, one of us has, but I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I asked you a long time ago, remember? And you were like, he was like, I can literally come anytime. And I was like, how about Thursday? And he was like,
I didn't talk to Mama. But when you threw the Thursday this time, I was just like, we're going to make it happen.
But I did that. I think the first time that was what happened, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, you're like, yeah, we can do, just holler at me. And I said something specific. I guess I'm used to
soon. Like females in my early days, and it's like nothing's about to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
And then when you shot that to me, I'm like, oh.
It was a very specific time that yeah. No, I understood for sure. Yeah, that's the game, is scheduling and getting in the right spot at the right time.
Especially with 4 boys that are doing everything that they can do. And then I leave so much just with my gig, I guess. Yeah. And so I try not to just like thrust that on Mama. But since this was the first week of school, I'm like, you can handle it.
Right.
We don't know what we're doing anyway, so let's just get it on.
And most of the day they'll be at school. So
yes, sir.
Yeah. 4 boys.
4 boys.
Wow. What are their ages?
13. The twins are 10, and Poet is 4.
Nice. Wow.
And they are all boy. Like they are.
Yeah. No mistaking
boys.
Yeah.
They are boys.
I'm gonna misgender them.
No, sir. No, we won't have that in the Crow house.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said one of them's into jiu-jitsu, huh?
Yes. The twin River is into jiu-jitsu. We both started March of 23, and that's when my hands started going to sleep. And side note, I've noticed I'm a visual talker, so I'm going to try to sit on my hands. But anyway, we started.
If you could, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And we started in March, but my hands started going to sleep, so he stuck with it. Actually, all the 3 oldest boys started, but Towns, my oldest, he's a lanky kid, and he wanted to try boxing because he's like, I don't like rolling around on the floor.
Right.
Like if I get in a pickle, and he's they all have such sweet dispositions, I can't imagine them ever getting into a pickle.
Right.
But Towns was like, I want to box. So if poop does hit the fan, like I can do something.
You bet.
About it and resolve the situation. And then there they go again. And so I was just like, hey, this is such a good life skill to have for the rest of your life. Like, maybe just consider it. But he wasn't. And then the other twin was just like, I don't like people like just rubbing on me and stuff. Yeah. And he was all about boxing as well. So River stayed in, and River's done a few tournaments. He's got a couple silvers and a couple gold from tournaments and stuff. But River is like, to quote my wife, I stamped him pretty hard. Like he looks just like me. He's chunky like me. He's thick with 2 C's. Like me, and he loves it. And so even though it's like pulling teeth to get him to go to jiu-jitsu, but when you're there and we get to be there and watch us practice, another dad and I were talking yesterday. His son does jiu-jitsu as well, and it's like, let's say that, they're doing it again. See, I'm sorry.
I don't mind.
So I can like be replying to an email or a text, and that's the time where River's like putting someone in a triangle or an arm bar, and then it's like he's focused and he's looking, and he's focused and he's looking, and that's the one time you're on your phone, and then he gets up and he's like, "You didn't even see it." You didn't even see it. I'm like, "Bro, I promise, I'm watching."
What are you talking about? Your hands quit working.
So I was struggling with this thing around March of 23. We're playing shows. My left hand would go to sleep playing the guitar, and it would start with my middle finger, and it would, like, you could feel it trickle down, and it would get numb. And then it just progressed from there, where waking up at night, my hands would be numb and asleep, and I would wake myself up already having my hands down, like on the side of the bed, doing this, trying to wake them up. And that just progressed, and so I had to have carpal tunnel surgery.
Oh, goodness.
On my left one in December, and then my right one in January, and it's 100% full recovery.
You bet.
I don't really know why it happened, but...
So you had started jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And then quit.
I quit because they would go to sleep when we would be rolling on the mats and just being in a stationary position for 30 seconds or more, my hands would start going numb.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, God, I got to get this fixed.
Right.
But then being the forever intellectual that I am, I waited 8 months to actually go see a doctor.
Right.
And then the doctor was just like, oh, yeah.
So you could push through a show.
Yes. My last show that I did, we have pictures of it where I was like, thank you guys. God bless you. Thanks for coming out. And blood was just coming down my hands where strings had went under my fingernails. But they were so dead.
You didn't know it.
Right.
Wow.
But a quick and easy process, and boom, back to good.
Yeah. Well, that's good that there's such a quick fix for it.
It is. The physician that I went to, Dr. Ira Lown, there in Austin, once I went back for post-op, he would even say, like, man, that's why I love doing this, because I have 100% recovery rate, and every client or whatever they call us.
Patient.
Hey, thank you. Big words.
Yeah.
And every patient that comes in is always like, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Yeah.
Because it really is a quick fix.
Yes, sir.
So.
And then, so you had a single come out sometime in 23.
I did. Nothing's changed.
Was it, so I guess, I mean, you had already probably recorded that long before that was affecting you.
I did. And again, it was like, I would take a Sharpie and do tick marks on my set list at where my hands started going numb, and we just noticed it was going up and up sooner in the set.
Oh, dang.
And so once it got to that point, it was like, man, I really need to do something. I mean, I have health insurance. Why don't we just utilize it?
Yeah, you're playing Nothing's Changed and Wear My Ring. That way you get the big ones out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, yeah.
Everything else, that's all just mush.
Yeah.
But yes, Nothing's Changed. And funny thing about Nothing's Changed is I kind of, like, I quit drinking alcohol. And about 3 or 4 months into this,
that's one change.
Yeah, that was one change.
Yeah, instead of nothing.
I mean, it's still some back steps. Like, I'm not perfect, but
yeah, no. I'm just. Yeah.
I know, but I listen to your podcast, and you guys abstain from alcohol, and I always envy that, and that, like, gives me motivation to, like, stay in the fight.
You bet.
But we were playing a show in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I was just looking around, and it was one of those shows where in Las Cruces at this specific bar, in front of the stage, it's only dancing. So no one can come and, like, hang out and stand. So people are kind of on the sidelines. And I was looking around to my right, and, like, all the pool tables were over here. And it was all the cowboys. Like, blue jean jackets, cowboy hats, just the crew that I remember when I rodeoed at Tarleton, like that I was in.
Yeah.
And then I looked to my left and I seen like I wasn't in a fraternity, but all the guys that I lived with that were in fraternities, like it was like that group over here.
Right.
And we're still playing the show. And I look back at the bar and there's people like my age. I'll be 48 next month. And they're all just drinking, just having fun, just enjoying themselves, having a beer. And I was like, man, nothing's changed. Nothing has absolutely changed since, 1998 with the rodeo buds. And I went back to the hotel and I started kind of scribbling it down. And then we played Hoots Pub in Amarillo the next night. And I went back to the hotel and finished it. And I just thought it was a fun, like, tip of the hat to the bar scene.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's changed. Like, you got Cowboys are shooting pool. And you kind of have to, like, figure out some words to make things rhyme a little bit. So it was like the preppies are looking cool. And then there's me back there at the bar, doesn't give a darn about anything, just having a beer.
Yeah.
So that's where.
Super relatable. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny you say that. I remember I was a buddy of mine, Garrison Gable. I was in college, or maybe I was just out of college, but I was down at A&M, and we were at Hurricane Harry's, and you've played there a lot. And
been there once or twice.
We were standing on the side of the dance floor, and by that time, I'm sure we had already shot a few games of pool, and I'd beat him handily. But he said he was just kind of looking out, and I want to say I'd graduated by then, but he said, it's funny to watch, these 19, 20-year-olds coming through here that they think they discovered something new,
right?
And that they invented this.
Exactly.
And every generation, goes through it. And it's neat, though, that you get to see it from the stage, his point of view. And then
it is. I always tell my wife, I'm like, man, I am so glad to not be in the single game. Like, thanks for being blind and dumb and just sticking with me.
How long have y'all been married?
We started dating in 2003, and we got married in 2007. So 17, 18 years-ish.
Been together 21, though. She's
nice. A lucky gal.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, especially with this shirt you're wearing. Golly.
It's hilarious. Last night because I'm an overthinker, so I laid my clothes out last night because I had to get up at 4 this morning, and she goes, "Oh, you're gonna wear that shirt?
That's what you're gonna wear, huh?"
I'm like, I'm going to Dale's podcast. Like, I need to make a statement. And she goes, "You're gonna make something."
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a statement, but there's gonna be something there.
How did y'all meet?
Oh man, how much time do you have, bud? Yeah. So I was in the Army.
Time's up.
Okay, and then we met.
Before your music career started is when you met her.
I met her when she was 17 and I was 20 or 20. I think I was 20 or 21. So
just a little illegal.
It's okay.
Almost. Yeah.
I mean, we weren't kin, so.
Right. Okay.
Wiggle room. Yeah. No, I was on leave from the Army, and Brooke and her group of friends were buds with my little brother, who's 5 years younger than me, and his group of buddies from Maypro and Waxahachie. And since I was old enough, of course, I'm, big brother's home on leave from the Army, so I went and bought them like all the bush light that they could handle and whatnot, and I took them to a party, and I just sat out in the car, and she came to the vehicle, and she's like, "Hey, my cousins are up here, and they're your age. You won't feel like Wooderson. Like, you can come up here and hang out." And I'm like, "All right, well, as long as you introduce me to the older crew, like, I'll come up there." And then her and I ended up spending the entire evening just sitting on her front porch, just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we left there. My brother tells a story better, but we're not going to have him on the podcast because this is a G-rated podcast.
Yeah, he's got some other stories that don't need to be told.
But little Lynn was just like, they're all drunked up, and I was just like, I looked at him, and I was like, dude, I'm going to marry her. And they all started laughing like, we're all going to marry her.
Right.
We love Brooke. And 6 years later, I ran into her at a Larry Joe Taylor festival.
Now she's of age.
And yes, now she's legal. And we just I didn't even have a cell phone. I had nothing. I had no communication
At LJT?
abilities, yes.
Gotcha.
Whatsoever, but we just ran into each other and ended up spending the next 3 days just hanging out.
How bad were you doing in life that you didn't even have a
Well,
I'm just kidding.
No, bro. It was like, I went back to Tarleton in 02, so this was 02, 03. Didn't need a cell phone.
Yeah.
Had an answering
That
machine.
was right around the time everybody... I don't know, when did I get a cell phone? I think it must have been 04.
See?
Yeah.
And this was before that. So it was funny.
This was before that, Dale.
Yeah, this was light years before that.
Yeah.
My roommates and I lived with 4 dudes because I had 1 year left. And so it was easier just to split all the rent that way.
Yeah.
Like my last 3 semesters at Tarleton, I shared a big bedroom with a kid named Dustin Whitney. And we would just put pillows down the middle. And I'd sleep on one side, he'd sleep on the other. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm out of here in like 6 months.
Yeah.
So, if this works for you, I'm cool. But we would all listen to the answer machine because Brooke has mush mouth. Even now, she'll leave me a voicemail and I'll just write her back. I'm like, babe, what in the world did you just say? And we couldn't figure that out. So I went and got one of those Nokia brick phones.
Oh, yeah.
The old school. And then we started talking. And the next thing you know, she's coming down to Stephenville and I'm going to Dallas. She lived right in downtown Dallas in a condo.
Were you playing at LJT when you ran into her?
I was not. I was actually out there hanging out with Bolin.
Gotcha.
So Jason's wife at that time I had grown up with, so we had a connection. So when they would play anywhere in or around Stephenville, they would come in like a week early, Kelly and Jason would, and just stay with me, and it would just be a week of debauchery.
Yeah.
And so I was out there with Jason and the Ragweed crew because they were all snug back then. And my brother, again, Little M, was out there with his buddies, and they ran into Brooke, and they all met up. And then we just didn't even spend any nights together whatsoever. We just started chatting. And so it'd be like when everybody's partying and drinking, her and I would just be like,
you bet,
chatty Cathy's. And it just kind of escalated from there. And then
were you playing at all?
No, I hadn't even begun playing. I started, my very first gig was in March of 2003, and this was LJT of 02.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, I take that back. This was LJT of 03 because it was in the spring. And then we started, I guess, quote unquote, dating in October of that year. And my first gig was in March. So I was about 6 months deep into playing music, and then we got together.
You bet.
So I blame her for me missing out on all the party rock star stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds,
I was also 28 years old. Like, you don't need to be party rock star stuff. Like, you've kind of time to be an adult.
Like maybe they, she might have just, I'm sure you probably think this too, but your career, like you got down to business once you started like touring and getting serious with your albums, and because it wasn't long after that Where My Ring came out.
Yeah, it was.
So maybe being married up is just you getting serious about. That's one less thing you got to worry about now.
In hindsight, yes. At the time, we didn't know what we were doing. Like,
yeah.
God bless her heart. If she knew what she was doing, she would have probably pulled the eject button switch pretty quick. But yeah, and the funny thing about Ring is I wrote it in 03 and I used to play it at shows, but it didn't really get any gravitational pull till probably about 2 or 3 years later. And because we didn't have money to make a record, so we played 2 years with no recorded music whatsoever.
It's got to mean a lot too that she was there from the beginning.
It really does, and especially now in talking to the boys, our kids, about I had done all my trashy living, if you will.
You bet.
And so it was nice for me to be a little older and a little more mature, and then to have this person that I guess, for lack of better terms, chased for 6 years and was with her. So I was in a really good headspace. And so it was easy to write love songs about her and for her. Not that Ring was, but the other songs on that record.
Yes, sir.
And then, but then going back to Ring, then a couple years later, we noticed, like at our shows, it was like people started requesting this song. And it's funny. I love to tell the story because Wear My Ring was like the second or third song we would play in the set because it was just another song that no one had heard, but they were at our shows. And then when it started kind of getting a foothold and people started gravitating to it, then we started moving it down to try to make it like a celebratory moment in the show. And it kind of organically took off as my life was going in a direction that I'd always dreamt of and prayed for, but had never had before. Excuse me.
I remember being at one of your concerts. Was it Brenham? Did you ever play in Brenham?
Yeah, we used to play Brenham. I used to play the hotel in Brenham.
Well, this would have been like at the fair after the rodeo.
Played the fair several 2 or 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And then in between all that, I'd play acoustic at the hotel that's right off whatever the highway is when you come in from Austin. You take the right to loop around to go to Bryan. I think it's a Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
That had a hotel bar.
I want to say this is like maybe 7, 8, or 9, somewhere in there.
Probably so.
I just remember singing.
Were you in the rodeo there?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
I remember singing along to Wear My Ring.
That's why we're best friends. That's why all your other friends are secondary to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Me and Jacobs Crawley.
That's so cool.
Out there.
See those things like that. Like I mean, when you've been playing one song for 20 years, some people, and not people, but like sometimes you can hear a snooty remark about it. But I'm like, man, as long as everybody's loving it, this never gets old to me. Like it hasn't fallen on deaf ears what the song Wear My Ring has allowed me to get to do, which is make 10 more records and get to tour and play shows. And it went from this weird state when we were a young band because Ragweed was doing it with Carney Man and Reckless Kelly was doing it with Crazy Eddie. Like, that was just a song we put over here. Like, we're not playing that anymore. Of course, we followed suit because these guys were huge bands and doing great crowds. So we went through this phase where that was us with Ring until pulled my head out of my rear end and was like, wait a minute, if the audience is paying their hard-earned money to come watch us and this is what they want to play, I should play it 10 times if that's what they want.
Yeah.
And so then we embraced it, and then over the years it's just been like, man, I am so grateful to have, for my own little world, I caught my little piece of lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's allowed me to get to do a whole lot of cooler things and write other songs and make more records. And I am so beyond words grateful for it.
That sounds like a good attitude to have on it.
I really do, man. I think it comes with maturity and, for me personally, my faith-based maturity and trying to be a good Christian man and being grateful and have gratitude for things that I have, whether meant to be or not, whether I meant to go try to accomplish this thing or it's just dumb luck, and I am beyond words grateful for it.
Have you played Music Fest?
I have. I've played Music Fest several years, and I played it several years in a row, and then we weren't there for a couple years. Then I had a manager that was good buds with John Dixon and Robin, and then he threw my name in the hat, and they had us back. And then we haven't been back since then. And I don't know why. And I really don't worry about it.
Right.
I would love to go back in a heartbeat. But it's just like, there's these days, just off the cuff, 1,000 bands. They only have so many spots. And I've got to live my time up there. And if they have us back, well, man, I'll be the first dude there and the last one to leave.
Did you ski?
I didn't because I was going through my neck and back surgeries all the times that we were up there.
Tell me about those. What happened?
Man, when you're pretty much Rambo, things catch up. I don't know. My doctor told me, he goes, man, sometimes it's just a bucket full of bad luck. And I like to think that it was a little bit of and I didn't do it a lot, but like a little bit of junior rodeo, a little bit of high school rodeo, then going to the Army and being on tanks and not climbing up and down like you're supposed to, jumping off, just not taking care of yourself because you're youth and invincible. And then some college rodeo, and then just the bucket of unluck. And so my back started hurting, and I dealt with it for 9 years, and to the point where I was sleeping on a floor with tennis balls under my back, which was miserable in itself. But that was the only way I could get pressure off of my lower lumbar.
Was it going down your legs?
Yes.
How far down?
To my ankles.
Wow.
It would go through my upper leg, around my knee, down to my ankle, and it was just
my surgeon told me the further down it goes your leg, the worse. That means that's the worst it is.
That's what Dr. Span told me. So I found this physician. So, oh my goodness, I forget the gentleman's name. He used to play fiddle for Kevin Fowler, and he had the same situation. And he said, go to Austin, go out to Bee Caves, and Dr. Maury, I think is his name. Don't quote me on that. But Westlake Spine and Sport. But this physician that he had was booked, so I went to Scott Span. And we went in, and for Brooke and I was miserable, like to the point where we would come home on Sundays, and I would have to text Brooke because she'd have to come and carry my guitars in and get my bags out of the truck. Like, I couldn't lift anything. I was complete wreck. And then the day we went to see Dr. Span, Towns was 1 or 2, and I had just lost a close friend that night before. So we were just disheveled and in a terrible headspace.
You bet.
And we go in there and we talk to Dr. Span, and he grabs Towns, and he's holding Towns like this and patting him and just talking to him like a father. So, of course, we're just melting like, okay, he's the best guy ever. Like, cut me now. Yeah. And then Dr. Span, in addition to that, he had been a triathlete at UT, has some UT records in swimming long distances, which if you met the gentleman, you would know because he's like 7 foot forever and his hands are this long. So, of course, he's like a dolphin. Yeah. But he was a triathlete and had a bicycle wreck that left him as a paraplegic. Whoa. And through invasive medicine and stem cell recovery, got all his feeling back. And he changed from neurosurgery to orthopedic surgeon to focus on spine since he had went through it. So there was a little bit of like comfort zone. And like this dude has walked through the fire.
Everything he's going to put you through.
Yes. And so we did it, man. I've been 100% since recovery.
Wow. One surgery.
Oh, well, excuse me. I had done a discectomy before that, hoping that would just clear it up, whereas they go in and just shave the vertebrae.
That's what I had.
And it didn't work. And so now we were like
So
having
what was the next one?
Fusion, full-on fusion. So I had L4, 5, and 6 are fused. Yeah. And then 4 years later, in my neck, the same thing, where I was sleeping, laying off the side of the bed with my head laid back because that's the only way you could get. And when you got a cranium like this, full of all this dead air and space, right? It weighs on your neck. Yeah. So I'd have to sleep laying like this, which again was miserable. And same thing, went in, fixed it, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, I had 2 discectomies.
I did too. I did the lower lumbar, then the neck, thinking that was going to fix everything, and then they both just kind of deteriorated. Yeah. And
my first one didn't work. My second one did.
That's awesome. I'm glad that worked out for you. And it just didn't for me. Yeah. And so we went to DEFCON.
Well, I don't know why. What made me go the second time? But I went in, and he was like, "Well, because there's like a 10% chance it'll re-herniate, just because, not because you messed up too soon after surgery and picked up something you should have. There's a 10% chance it'll re-herniate just on its own." And that's what happened.
That's exactly what happened to me. And he told me that. He was like, this isn't a foolproof thing. This is like step one. Like, I'm preaching to the choir, but yeah, my doctor, because I did Dr. Moody up at Methodist Hospital in Dallas. And then whenever I found Dr. Span, and like we did it, and man, dude, I sing his praises. Furthermore, Dr. Span, we played, oh my goodness, the big festival that's up at the Automotive Center at Fair Park, Mardi Gras, Texas Mardi Gras. And I'm in a back brace, complete back brace. And I come walking off the stage after our big show, and he's at the bottom of the ramp. He goes, I cannot believe you're my only patient that's ever done what I said. So he saw me like in action with the huge back brace, looking like a dork, but just like this playing guitar.
Yeah.
And then when I had to have my neck done, my insurance, his hospital that he works at, didn't take it. So this dude took it upon himself to get his assistant to find a hospital in Austin that would take my insurance to do the OR.
Wow.
And so we went to Breckenridge downtown, and he even told me, he goes, hey, I'm going to do my best not to leave anything dirty in you. This isn't the best hospital. I'm looking at him, and I'm getting, like, he's scrubbing down. He goes, I'm just kidding. Yeah. It's just, we're in a different spot.
You bet.
So.
Yeah, that's wild. So how long were you in the Army?
3 years.
Yeah.
I, growing up in Maypearl, Maypearl is a blue-collar, hard-working community. I come from a drywaller, and my mother owned a salon there in town. And I just kind of I feel like I always have to tiptoe this story because I never want to offend anyone who still lives there, like my sister included, my family included. But I just kind of always felt like I needed to get out. I always thought the world was bigger than Maypearl.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad and I didn't get along too hot. A typical teenager. I know more than you do, Dad, which is way far from the truth.
Yeah.
And so I figured my best route was to go to the military. And so I went into the Army with the mindset of, like, if I enjoy this and this is good for me, this is a great career, and I'll do 30 years, 20 years, whatever it is. And then, but it wasn't. It was 95 to 98. It was all peacetime. It was a lot of ego hierarchy.
Oh, I can imagine.
But I had a great time. I mean, I didn't have a great time. I hated it overall. But I'm so happy and so glad that I went. And there was a lot of good times. I'm still friends with a lot of guys from basic training to my service time at Fort Stewart. But it just kind of wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so I did my 3 years and boogied on. Next chapter.
What was it that you took from it, though? I mean, surely something like stuck, like there's maybe like you got good at making your bed at least.
I swear to God, I was about to tell you, like, I make my bed every morning.
Yeah.
And Brooke, bless her heart, I love her to the end of time, but she'll be making the bed. I'm like, just go. I got it. I got it, babe. Just let me knock
just
this out.
Let me do it. Yeah.
And she'll pick on me to her girlfriends and stuff when we're at baseball games or football games, like, and if they're just being chatty, and she'll be like, "Oh, well, Bart makes the bed every day." And so I think that's the biggest thing that I took from it. But for me, the military, being peacetime and being my personal experience, I wasn't a big fan of it. So it wasn't until probably 10-ish years ago I started doing some work and some charity stuff with veteran organizations. And I got to see the military from a different angle, from somebody who actually was in it, but didn't go to war and didn't, do what our brothers and sisters have been doing for the last 25 years.
Yeah.
So I had a different respect for it. And then also being in a veterans organization, like one of my best friends is Chief Warrant Officer 6. And I always tell Vance all the time, he's an Apache pilot. And I'm like, you wouldn't have spoken to me if we were in together. Like, you may have, but like your ranking of people would not have. And then, so I think it's a different service now where everybody needs each other. I think where I was, I had a few Desert Storm veterans that kind of looked at, us young bucks as just using it like I did to get a college GI Bill and to do something till you figure out what you want to do. So I think there was a little bit of resentment with that, which in hindsight, as an adult now, I can see that. That's fair. And then, it was just a lot of hierarchy and ball busting, rank structure stuff. But we were all bored. We were just training to go to war, but there were no wars to fight.
I can imagine, though, there was probably later on I feel like as a musician, when you're making your living, going down the road and playing music and going from party to party to play them music, essentially, that there were those moments where it's like, man, this is hard work. And then you immediately remember being in the military and you're like, yeah, but it's not that hard. Maybe just some perspective like that.
I agree with that. Over the years, and I don't know if I tie it back to the military other than you had to be where you were supposed to be on the button at a certain time. Mm-hmm. And then getting into music where you just got a bunch of dudes who just play music and crew guys that just learn sound and do this. And so when you say roll time's noon and they roll in at 12:30, it's like, hey, you're late. So there was some of that perspective in bringing it to a structured business. But I think, I've had some people in my band where I'll give them the talk. I'm like, hey, we're not in a motor pool where it's all concrete and it's 107 degrees in Southeast Georgia.
Yeah.
We're getting in a van and we're going to get to play music.
Right.
I even had a sound engineer one time who was just being quite catty. And I called him over one day on a Wednesday or Tuesday and just asked him to come to lunch. And I was going to take me to lunch. And we walked. But where we walked was past a condo that the guys were roofing it. And I said, and I just stopped and I was like, hey, and I'm going to keep his name. I'm not going to say his name. And I'm like, hey, you see what those guys are doing? Those 80-pound squares of shingles, they're hauling up that ladder. We're not doing that. We're not digging ditches. We're not breaking track on a tank. Yeah. We're not pulling an engine on a tank. We're playing music, man.
Yeah.
So just appreciate it. Whether you're in my band or the next band you go on to and so on and so forth, like, this is a pretty cool gig.
Right.
So just be on time and be happy.
Yeah.
But
sometimes it's hard to transplant that perspective.
It really is. Brooke likes to remind me, because for me, growing up in Maypearl, growing up a ninth grade dropout, self-made millionaire father who's a workaholic, is probably working right now. Like if I was to text my father right now and be like, hey, I'm hanging out with Dale doing a podcast. Well, I never got to do a podcast. I'm on the tractor right now. Or I'm clearing brush. I'm fixing fence. I'm like, oh my God, cry me a river. You should have chose better. But, oh my gosh. Sorry, I kind of got myself lost. But growing up there, and then I worked for a farmer. I would do 13-hour days. I baled wheat straw. I went on wheat harvest all through my teenage years. And then I went to the Army, and then I got out, and then I was back to baling hay, and then I was a welder, and I worked for a pipeline company, and I worked for a refrigeration company. I did all these different hats.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, music. This is dumb luck. This is pretty damn good, cool.
Yeah.
And I felt like that friend of mine I was talking to that worked for me just came like right out of high school into bands and probably had a band better than mine. Maybe they were on a bus and now he's with me in a van and things were just different. And yeah, the perspective I think was missing. And but I was also, even though I was older by age, I was still new in running an organization. Mm-hmm. So I had to really learn how to be like, hey, don't judge everybody because they don't think like you.
Yes, sir.
Because I did wear all those other hats and I know what it's like to be an employee and somebody depend on you. And now I'm depending on these people, but maybe I'm not so vocal and being like, hey, we have to be here at this time or we have to leave at this time or we have to get there at this time. And I don't know if that makes sense or if I just started
No, for
rambling.
sure, because there's it's rare that you have, somebody that treats the business or the band like the head honcho does, and I think that's to be expected. There's a certain level of commitment that you shouldn't just demand out of, some people, like it's, and then maybe some people that do treat it like it's their own, then they should be rewarded as such.
Not to name drop, and I can pick the name up myself. I don't need your help picking it up. But like Josh Abbott will say a lot of times that maybe he ran it like a business to a fault almost from day one. And I didn't. And I think that's where maybe some of that gray area crept in on me.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to be all for one, one for all.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't work that way, I had to learn that, like, oh, well, the guitar player really is just a side man, even though I'm trying to treat him like an equal individual. But I'm also the one that builds the set list, books the shows, pays for the records, writes the songs. So I kind of say what goes on, even though I'm trying to act like they have, equal say. And so when that kind of started splitting, it was a learning curve for me to be like, okay, it's not fair for me to want everybody to be all for one, one for all, but I'm also doing everything. And a two-way street. Like,
yeah, your name is on the line.
Right.
If anything goes bad, it's your neck.
Right.
And
there was another side of that too, where, like, I'm borrowing money from my parents to make a record. So without realizing it up front, in the front part of my noggin, that I have everything on the line, and I'm paying you to come in and play your instrument for my songs. So when it started getting blowback, or people wanted to put in their 2 cents, if I didn't agree with it, then sometimes I'd be like, oh, I don't like that idea. I mean, I wasn't that cutthroat. We would always just talk like brothers and old friends. But then those guys were like, well, hey, you want us to give input, but you're the only one that gets to shut us down if you don't like our input. And then it made me realize, so, in the moment, like, well, I'm the one finding the money, and I'm the one writing the songs, and I'm the one with the name out there, and I'm the one doing this. So it just wasn't going to work that way.
Yeah.
And that's when one day we just all talked in the driveway, and I'm like, what if I just pay you guys a flat rate, and will you still show up? And that's when we went from Bart Crow Band to just Bart Crow.
So how was it structured before that?
It was Bart Crow Band, and it was behind the scenes, one for all for one, but yet.
But so y'all would like split it or something?
Yeah, I would take all the money, like whatever we made in a night, pay the gas, take a couple $100 out for whatever our van payment was, and just split everything 4 ways.
Gotcha.
And that wasn't fair to me. It also wasn't fair to them, because again, like I said, or at least I hope I made the point clear that.
How early was this? What year was this?
Man. This was like from day one until probably 2012, maybe.
Okay.
Because it was just a weird thing, because, like, and I don't know
that's how you split. You split it until 2012.
Yeah.
Dang.
And then I looked up, and I'm like, I'm the only one coming home broke. Dang.
Yeah.
And we did the Dandelion record, and that was the first record I did in a studio without my band, and I went and took my songs with studio musicians, and we made a record. And then there was some fallout from that, because we had always been that brotherhood. But even though, like, Ray Charles could have seen it was a brotherhood because we were friends, and we all loved each other, and we loved getting to do what we do. But, like, yeah, there wasn't equal say in everything. I don't know if I missed that point a while ago when I got to rambling. Like, I'd want everything equal, but if I didn't feel like it was the right thing, we just wouldn't do it. And then on their side, I'm building the show, I'm building the songs, I'm paying for the record, so I was having some resentment without realizing it, being too immature to realize, like, hey guys, this just cannot be an equal 4.
Yeah.
It just cannot. But I think, I referenced earlier where, like, Ragweed and Reckless Kelly, those were like the 2 big bands, and Pat were just kicking booty, and at least Randy Rogers' band, we'd opened for them so much, and they were a brotherhood. Like,
yeah,
they had, I mean, I don't know their dynamic and I don't know their details, but they were a brotherhood and still are. Like, they are a band. So they all talk and all have a say, and they all write songs, and they all do this. That's kind of what we were shooting for, because it worked for them. And when you see somebody doing fantastic, that's what you want to aspire to.
Well, it worked on the outside, but don't you think that, like, to some degree, every band probably experiences what you're talking about?
I think so. I mean, at this stage, now being, I guess, almost 10 years into just me, I'm the singular guy with people that I absolutely worship and love, that I get to play with, and I pay them well, and I pay them as a per gig basis. It's so much easier, because it's do or die by the sword. But I'm still not good enough, humble enough to ask someone's opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's an opinion, and I can get some feedback. Whereas somebody like, I don't want to play that song tonight. Well, hold on. I spent 2 hours at home this week on Wednesday running through all these songs to see if they would line up and make a good show. What were you doing? You're out at the bar drinking, hanging out with your girlfriend. Don't tell me you don't want to play this song. So it kind of came to that, which makes sense. I mean, I feel like it was bound to happen. But then when I see other bands that still make it work, I still kind of envy that, like Flatland Cavalry. I don't know their inner workings, but I just know they are a band and they are a band name. So I just assume, I take it upon myself to think that like they all still talk. And I think that's pretty cool. If it can work, I think it's really neat. It can't always work though.
Well, the band I keep thinking about is Cody Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just seem to click so well. Just everybody, Miles and Joey and Jake, they're just, everybody's still, it's just the OG crew.
I do too, and I don't mean anything like I know their system.
Mm-hmm.
I've known Cody for a long, 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 long time. I think when things are going good, it might be easier.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know that. But
Yeah.
when things are going like, this dude's on a different stratosphere. Now, even talking about Flatland, like they're in a different rung on the ladder than the Bart band is. And I sometimes wonder, I guess I'm curious to wonder, like, when you're playing those top shows, I can't imagine, I know myself, and I think I know Cody well enough, even though I haven't seen him in a long time. You're just such of an optimistic dude that when shit's hitting like that and you're doing so good, there's not probably going to be a lot of negativity in your communication, in your phone book of players and people that are in your band. I'm sure everybody's like, this is great. You keep going.
Right.
You made that set list, last tour, and we crushed. Keep going, baby. And I think it might sometimes people get a little more opinionated if things like, well, that didn't really pan out well.
Right.
I may be wrong. I may be 100% off the mark.
Well, it's also, kind of like my deal. I feel like, I can't tell you how many times even this week, Donnie is just like, man, I need more limelight.
Donnie.
Put me in front of the camera.
Well, on that note, I've kind of been...
The people want to see this red hair. I hear the murmurs, Donnie. We haven't talked about it.
Hey, I'm on team Donnie.
So it's Donnie with the cam. Yeah. It's Donnie with the camera and Cole with the jokes. Yes. Cole feeds me these jokes. It's just like, I'm the funny one. I know. I've never said that to your face.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that I've always assumed that I see bands like that, and I just am always curious how the rest of the band feels. And it would take a certain type of, for instance, thinking about like Josh Serrato, who I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And he's been on a couple different of those big bands as a guitar player, but he's so talented. It seems to me that someone like Josh is just in love and passionate about the craft, and he's okay with being a part of it, even if he's not in the spotlight the whole time.
I agree a bazillion %.
I feel like that's what it would take, is just a team of guys who, like, if you were to get 3 or 4 Joshes on a team and then somebody to be the face of the album, that, I don't know. It would be tough, though, if you had somebody who's not on the face of the album who wanted to be.
That's honestly, when you just said that, this all started, the dots started connecting in my head. So my deal was, like, I had a guitar player for 9 years. We were the best of buds. Lived next door to me, went through some heartache, went through some family tragedy, lived next door to Brooke and I. He's significantly younger than us. We treated him like one of our children and loved him. But he was young. He didn't know where he wanted to be. And so with me opening that door of like, let's all be equals, he wanted say, but at that time, and I might have been at fault, so I'm not dogging on him at all. But it would be like you sporadically throw your 2 cents in the hat, whereas I'm doing this every single day. You can't come and go. Like, it's all or nothing. And then when we split that and been like, all right, you're just side guy. And then I think at that time, both of our immaturity was he wanted to be as much talked about or represented. If I'm saying this right, I hope I am, because I'm tiptoeing on eggshells right now. But I feel like he was feeling like getting left out, though he's contributing musically to all these songs I'm writing. And then it wasn't getting the notoriety that my name was. And I didn't give a damn about that. I just wanted the band to get to play at full houses. Yeah. And so after 9 years, we split up. We broke up. And it was pretty tough because it was personal and professional. But now we're back to playing. He just played with me this weekend, and we're like the best of buddies. He's married, got 2 children. People grow up. People change, myself included. I'm not saying it was all at him, but it was just like you don't get to give your 2 cents every other week, either all or nothing. And we were immature and didn't know how to talk through all that stuff. So we broke up, and 10 years later, we're playing music together again, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And we're having a blast, and it's good. Love seeing his children, his wife. Yeah. And we're just both in different headspaces now.
Yeah. That would be, man, it's got to be.
Well, I'll take it. Like, I should have talked more, because there were times when he'd be like, you say you want all this, blah, blah, blah. You want help and you want us to do this, but then you don't listen. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to listen once a month when I'm eat, sleep, and breathing this, daily. And we're both immature. We didn't know what we were doing. Shit, nobody gave a book of how to run a band. I don't know.
Well, I will say, with what little experience I've had with running a business and social media and the apparel line, our first video was 11 years ago.
Really?
And July 1st, 2013. And then we started the apparel company at the same time.
I didn't notice.
And we kind of a lot of stuff out there moving around.
Yeah, no school clothes for me, Brooke. I'm good.
There you go.
I'm going to Neiman's next door.
Yeah. As I kind of set out, I haven't planned anything. I've really just tried to keep doing what got me where I was at that moment, which was make videos, and then as we've grown and we've got employees now, we're still making videos. You got to make decisions with money. You've got to make decisions on product and inventory and warehouse and, pay the bills and marketing. And then where are you going to focus your time as the head honcho and then manage those people. Out of all those things, I never would have guessed that the most challenging part would be managing the people.
Right.
And making sure that you're doing right by them and making sure that their needs are fulfilled and being aware of it. And so there's so much of, filling those needs is part of it's just knowing that they have a need. And then the main thing there is communicating.
But, when you do like you do, and we did this, I can confidently say that I was that guy, what do you need? And take the business away and take the decision making and set list building and show building and all that stuff. I've always just been I treat people the way I want to be treated, which starts with love and just being chill and just cool. And the toughest thing when you were just saying that is whenever you keep going and at some point you come to this decision or it is presented to you where this isn't working, so we got to cut bait. And I know you love all the employees at work and Cole, and everybody loves Donnie. I'm team Donnie. But if Donnie started being a turd, at some point you'd have to be you don't get to come here anymore.
Yeah.
That's what stinks.
Oh, it's the worst part.
I have had to let go of people that I worship.
Yep.
And it's a weird thing because I realized probably 10 years ago when the writing's on the wall, I already know it. But I am the biggest like, oh, it'll fix itself. It'll fix itself.
Yeah.
It'll fix itself. And then when you one day wake up and you're like, this is my dream, or maybe it wasn't your dream. Maybe it just happened. Because that's me with music. I'm supposed to be a drywaller. I wanted to be a rodeo cowboy my entire life.
See, when you came in with that shirt
do.
on, I thought you were a drywaller.
Yeah. Well, I'm a drywaller in Hawaii.
Gotcha.
So I just want it to work so much. And then when you have to do those tough things, like I've had to tell people that I freaking would take a bullet for, that you don't get to come back.
Right.
You're being a drain on the rest of the team. And I love you, and try to do it with dignity and class, and letting people go sucks. Like, dude, I want to throw up all the time. But I've just come to learn in the last 10 years, like I was saying, when you know, you know.
Right.
And that just stinks. It's almost like thinking about, being with Brooke so long, thinking about earlier relationships. When you know, you know. And you keep fighting and hoping it'll just work itself out. And then when you know. And fortunately, the few times I've had to do that, which is minimal over 21 years, but when I have, a lot of times the other person's kind of like, yeah, I kind of felt this. Yeah. So, and it sucks. It sucks so bad.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, man, I can't, especially now being a father and a husband, it's like, this has to keep moving. We got to be productive. We're not on a Cody Johnson level. We're on a Bart level. But let's be the best Bart level we can be. And when somebody's not doing that, then you start thinking about like, well, will my son eat tomorrow? Like, or what if this person's a turd and gets drunk and, makes a bad rap for my name, and then now we lost out on revenue, and that stinks too. So what you're saying, just moving people and being communicative with people. Yeah. There's no rule book for it, and no one taught us how to do it. And so you just kind of learn as you go. And my biggest thing is, and I try to tell this to Towns, my oldest, because he's switching baseball clubs, and he was just like anxiety stricken, sick to his stomach to tell his coaches, but I made him go tell his coaches. Yeah. Like, you have to tell the coaches that you're going to go to a different club, and just be on it. And I told him, I was like, be direct, be classy, be respectful, be kind, nip it in the butt, and then take what they give you back and walk away. If you do it with all your grace and kindness and respect, the ball's in their court. And if they hate you, you can't fix that. Mm-hmm. But if you can do it with dignity and know that you were a gentleman and straight up about it, because that's how I've had to be in these situations. And
see, I just like to send a text. Yeah.
I was thinking about,
hey, don't come to work today.
I was thinking about getting Jim to go in his airplane and just do a banner.
Yeah.
You're good. Stay home.
You're fired. No, or maybe just stop paying them. Let it work itself out.
There you go.
Like an office space.
Yeah, nobody will hit you up then.
Right. Yeah, that was for me. That was a huge surprise, and the first few times I had to deal with it, like as I'm sure you, it just, yeah, I couldn't. It'd be the first thing I thought about when I woke up, and the last thing I thought about before I went to sleep. And sometimes, I'm sure maybe you even had to let go of some really good talent. Yeah. Like they might have sounded better than anybody you could have ever hired at that time.
That, and just like you guys working, I gray the area real quickly. If you're that good and you're playing your talent for me, I love you. Mm-hmm. I'm giving you all of me. Mm-hmm. So I don't even keep it employee, employer. Like, we're bros. We're buds. We're in a van. We're in a bus. We're doing this. I love you. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? How's home life? Like, and then you get real personal very quick. And man, when it goes south, it's just like,
yeah.
It's like having to tell Brooke that I'm not as handsome as she thinks I am.
Right. Yeah. Man, how's living in Austin?
Man, I love it.
Where do you live? In Austin?
I live in Austin, like for real Austin. Yeah. I am 1.8 miles from the capital.
Right.
That's as the crow flies. I live right off South Side.
Pun intended.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
290 and South First, right by St. David's Hospital, and I absolutely love it. I love it because my street's a dead-end street, and I don't have any neighbors.
So you don't have any like liberals coming down there and knocking on your door?
No, sir. I mean,
Yeah.
they're around there, but we just swim move those guys and be like, yeah. I remember when I was dumb.
Yeah.
Did I say that?
You used to be a liberal?
No.
Oh,
No, I was dumb about something else.
gotcha.
Yeah, like one time, I don't know. Maybe I didn't like
I was about
something.
to say, let's hear about that part of your
No,
life.
sir. No.
Yeah.
No, sir. I'm from the realistic side of the world.
Yeah.
Man, my street's cool. Our little bubble's cool. I love Austin mostly, I think, because when we first moved there and we weren't parents, we went to music 7 days a week when I was home. And then as we became parents, there's something to do all the time between football, baseball, soccer, basketball, jiu-jitsu, theater, skateboarding, BMX. My boys are in all of the above. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Now, granted, I haven't lived all over the world, but coming from Maypearl, where you can bale hay, or you can work in construction, or you can raise kids in Austin, and they can do all those things that I just listed, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I've grown very accustomed to DoorDash and Favor and HEB delivery. Like I've gotten pretty guilty of that.
Are you missing the road traveling?
Not really. When I have long spaces, I was telling you earlier, this year's our first year to go from 150 to 200 shows to we're down to about 60.
Golly,
It's terrifying financially. It's terrifying when I'm home. Like right now, I'm in the middle of home for 3 weeks, and I've just never experienced that.
how are you filling that void with the income, if you don't mind me asking? Like, because that's a big leap.
Man. So
Or you've just been smart all along.
no, God, no, sir.
I'm not trying to get into your finances at all. I'm just curious, like, what is it? What is it that makes a guy? Because that's more than half. Going from 200 to 60.
Yeah, I'm trying to answer it with appropriately. Basically, like the Cliff Notes, play less, make more. And we've been very fortunate.
What do you mean by that?
To, instead of playing, every club that we can play, that we love to play, for, minimal money versus a door, maybe holding out for private shows and festival shows where monetarily things are a little better, a little better budget. And then I think that I've seen other bands do it, and I just haven't known any better. Always go, play everywhere, because one day they're going to stop asking. And so I think my agent has been extremely delicate and kind and hardworking in making that work, where, instead of going and playing 3 shows for, I'm just making this up, like for $2,500, maybe go play 1 show for $10,000. And then on personal side, financially, being frugal, changing our budget.
So how much did you make last year after taxes?
Oh, probably $5 million. No. I mean, how much do you want me to? No.
No, I'm just kidding. I know that you guys play music. You're all rich, and we could tell. We could tell by your shirt.
Well, I bought this shirt a few years ago when things were better.
Gotcha.
I just fit back in it now.
Thanks for enjoying the Rodeo Time podcast. We've got many more guests to come. Next up is next week is Rob O'Neill, the guy who shot Osama bin Laden, as well as Ty Murray. After that, a fellow King of the Cowboys. So check out those podcasts to come. Don't forget to like, subscribe. That way you can stay in the know. Send the word podcast to my phone number, 940-353-0890, and that'll keep you in the loop on when those podcasts drop. So also, love to thank our sponsors, Rock and Roll Denim, the Reflex that I'm wearing, Total Feeds, keeping Boone powered for over a decade. And then we've got Mountain Op supplements. Get yourself some protein, a protein bar, some Ignite, Can-Am side-by-sides. That's how we feed everything on the ranch. And last but not least, American hats. Hey, old son, pull it down where your ears cramp just a little bit. That's fight mode. But it's got to be an American, because I'm an American. Now let's hear more from Bart Crow. So what do you have going on this year that you're excited about? Like, is a big show, a new album?
I have a new record that's going to come out in September.
Okay.
Yeah, I went and made it, I think, earlier this year.
Okay.
And it's just 5 songs on an EP.
Nice.
And went and I'm really proud of it. I wrote 3 of the songs, and then I got a couple covers. One is by my buddy Joey Green, and I've played it for 15 years live.
When it's an EP like that, so would it be considered an album with a name? What do you call it?
Well, so what we're going to do this time, and again, I'm learning this too. We just had a big Zoom call this week. We're going to release a single in September and a single in February and maybe one more in March or April, and then boom, then all 5 will come out.
Oh, okay.
And so the record, the album together will be called Hey Pretty Thing.
Okay.
What's
the first single?
It'll be called Stained Your Crown.
Stain Your Crown?
Stained Your Crown.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a song I wrote. So we tiptoed on alcohol earlier, and so I made a record in 2018 that didn't do so hot, and things started getting pretty bleak in the Bart band financially. And then I was just kind of lost and just like, why now? I'm a dad. I've got kids. I got mortgage. I got insurance, all this stuff. Like, why is this going backwards now? And so I started drinking way, 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 way too much.
Yeah.
And my wife is the smartest human being I know. And so where I thought I was being clever and sly, like she knew everything.
Yeah.
And I went back to taking a lot of pills and just numbing out and not worrying about it. And so I guess at the end of sometime in last year, I just got to thinking about the hell that I probably put her through, even though she's badass and like gives me all the grace. I mean, she's like when I pray and I thank the Lord for giving me his grace. And if he can give me grace, I can give myself some. And I still struggle with that. But the grace that she gave me also with all that, because I never let financially and love and being there, never let anybody down, but I was just wrecking myself. And like, she didn't want to see her best friend being garbage pretty much. And so it's just like, so I wrote this song about, I'm sorry, because she's such a wonderful human being, which is why I married her. I'm not saying that because she's my wife. I'm saying I married her and snagged her because I knew how special and amazing she was from the day I met her when she was 17.
Yeah.
That she has a crown, even though she doesn't know it. And I felt like I stained that and like I put her through hell.
Gotcha.
And so I wrote this song just like, I'm just sorry that I stained your crown. There's a line in it that's like, you swore forever. Please give me one more chance to make forever. And so I thought it was powerful enough and it was from my heart enough that I wanted to, because it's a weird thing with music, which I know you love music. And so you can attest to this when you're driving in your truck. Yeah, there's the good songs, the fun songs, and
I like
there's
sad songs.
There's those songs that just hit you and you're like, holy, that person was in a spot. And I feel like I was very honest and open with that song. And I think that's the best thing that I can do is just be honest.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that just like, I'm just sorry that I stained her crown, because she's pretty damn perfect, to be honest with you. She really is. She doesn't have a flaw. Her only flaw is she overloads the dryer.
Right.
And if that's all I got to deal with, then...
Damn it, honey.
Hey.
What did you...
I would tell her all the time, like, you burn that heating element up. I'm
22 pairs of pants,
Yes.
1 load of laundry.
Dude, and she burned it up last year, and I held strong for 2 weeks. I took all my clothes and the kids' clothes to a wash and fold. And I'm like, okay, this is way too expensive and way too inconvenient. I'll just fix the damn dryer.
Yeah.
And I promise, she was like, I win.
Interesting.
So, but if that's the worst I have to deal with, then
right,
I'm a pretty blessed and lucky dude.
Yeah. So how long have you been, for the most part, like how long did it ago was it that you were just like cut off alcohol?
July 15th last year, we were playing a show at Lake LBJ, opening for Kyle Park. Already been day drinking. And then the sound and production, something went wrong, cables busted, something, and we're sitting there. It's 7,000 degrees, no cover, and I'm sitting there, and I'm already hungover from the day and probably the weeks before. And look down at my fat belly, and I'm thinking about my boys being kind of, pretty special athletes. And I'm like, I'm the fat dad at the sporting events.
Dang.
my wife's pretty smoking, and look at me, just letting it all go. And that's it. And so I went to the hotel, and I was battling insomnia. And I promise you, I know for a fact, without any scientific proof, it was alcohol-based. I couldn't sleep at night. I'd wake up at 2 and be up. And I'm like, I'm done. And so I went back to the hotel after our show, up all night, drank a gallon of water on the 16th, and the 17th I hit the gym, and no more drinking. And then I had a couple drinks over holidays, but with Brooke like a mature adult, like I am. And then periodically, I'll have a glass of wine with her at dinner, or, we went to a party this past Saturday, and I had a beer.
Yeah, kind of let yourself go.
But I did. But I showed up. I was so proud of myself. I showed up with a 6-pack of the Heineken non-alcoholic. I'm like, I really did it.
Yeah.
And so I had one beer with my buddy, and then I just stuck to that. And I'm like, okay, so that's
how have your shows been since then? Like, how do you feel at them? Is there a difference?
I feel great. I feel wonderful, because I think to myself when I play, or if I sing and I feel like I nailed a song that's kind of out of my registry, that I'm like, God, I can't imagine how shitty this sounds if I'm looped up.
Right.
Or how bad I play. I'm already not a great guitar player, and I think to myself when I'm playing, I'm like, okay, you're doing it, man. Yeah. Then I'm like, oh my God, how terrible am I when I'm all lubed up?
Yeah.
Holy cow. And I warm up as you're supposed to. I cool down my throat as you're supposed to. I engage the crowd, and it's not always just self-deprecation and funny jokes. It's like actually engaging and saying thank you and being sincere.
Yeah.
So it's always a little weird at first, because you are usually got, the ice is broken, so you can kind of just be comical and fun. But I figure at pushing 48, like, if I can't figure out how to do it now, when am I going to learn? And so I think it's been a great thing. And again, going and working out every day, just doing things that matter more, and I could talk to you for hours on this, like our friend Tim, I get to go work out with him once a week, typically. And I'm like, I want to be like these people.
Yeah.
When I reached out to you last year, I'd heard you on Rogan, and you guys had worked out, or you and Tim had worked out or something like that. And you do these things with Cameron Haynes. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. Right. This feels so much better than taking Tylenol at 4:00 because I drank, 2 bottles of wine between 8 a.m. and 2.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I aspire to be. And I've gotten to be friends with a caliber of people that I aspire to be. And that keeps me moving in that direction. And so I feel like I'm invincible, almost.
Yeah. Well.
And it's a weird thing, because, when growing up in Maypearl, when you start drinking at 16 years old and you're just a beer drinker, and then at some point it turns on you, and then it becomes, you're chugging a bottle of Chardonnay at 8 a.m. in the morning because you don't have anything to do. Next thing you know, you're not at the gym. You're not eating right. You're eating crap food. And next thing you know, you look up and you're Bart Crow, and you're 264 pounds at 5'10", and it's like, ooh, this doesn't calculate really well.
Yeah.
And so I think the getting off the booze and the pills and stuff. The pills were easy. That's the craziest thing. And in my 20s, there were a lot worse drugs, but dealing, messing with the hydrocodone like I did for a few years, that was dancing with the devil. And I am very blessed that I just one day, Brooke busted me. She woke up and she was just like, hey, you got a decision to make. It's me or them. That's it. There's no in between. And I flushed 300 hydrocodone down the drain and never looked back.
Dang.
Gave her my bottle of Tito's, never looked back.
Yeah. Hydrodale is a thing. I've had several surgeries, and normally maybe 3 days, 4 days. Mm-hmm. My back surgeries, I probably went 5 or 6 days, but I would never get it refilled, and I would never have more than like I would have pills left over all the time.
Right.
With these surgeries, my back surgeries, like my hand. I broke my hand in Fort Worth, and I just didn't feel like I needed them. I switched to Tylenol pretty quick, and then my I can't remember, my collarbone was the same way, maybe 5 days, but then my shoulder surgery, that sucker hurt for like I got them refilled, and then
But
I didn't go
using them-
past it. Like I didn't go get anything from anyone else. They were
Right.
It was just prescription, but there was like 2 weeks in there.
Well, there's
where
a
to
purpose
sleep,
for them.
and,
Like-
and I was using them for their purpose.
Right.
But a couple of times we were filming rodeo times, and the guys called it Hydrodale, and there was just no filter, and we had to like bleep out, what was said. And
Gotcha.
my arm was, if not in a sling, just came out of it for the video. But we need to look back at what videos those were and compare the footage.
Well,
Maybe-
when you look up and you're calling people you knew in your 20s and going and buying them from them for
Yeah.
$9 a pop, like,
per pill.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
not smart. It's not healthy. It's not good. And it was
but you don't. I mean,
and for me, it was almost like I'm doing it because I can get away with it.
well, and
But
if
she's so smart. Like, I think my eyes do this, as they probably do. Like, everything changes. And she's like, I know.
well, it probably doesn't even have to be a physical change to your face the way you look. I mean, she knows you well enough. Like y'all are
Probably
one.
talk like this, even
Yeah,
though I
yeah.
think I'm not.
Right. Yeah, she could probably read your mood just within
Right.
half of the first sentence.
Yeah, and so, very fortunate to dance with that devil and just like throw it away. But the alcohol was just, and I've talked to her about it, very open, and she's like, it's because it's on every corner, it's every counter, every gas station you go into. She's like,
Yeah.
you don't have to drive to Ennis to go fill it up.
Right.
So I just like, you know what? Done. Just done.
That's awesome though that
I mean, I still fall backwards. I still have drinks, and
yeah,
there's some
just a few
gigs where-
pills every now and then.
No pills. I have not had a pill since.
I'm microdosing, okay? You chop it in half.
I literally have a pinched nerve in my shoulder, and I went to the orthopedic surgeon, and I begged for an injection. And she goes, and the lady was like this. She goes, well, I'll just give you some hydrocodone and then some clozapine and blah, blah. I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And she's like, do you have an addiction? I'm like, no, but I'll eat them today. I'll eat all of them. I was like, but I don't want that. Obviously,
We'll pop those things like Skittles.
I have something wrong with me. Fix that. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. And I just took the prescription. And then I handed it to Brooke. I'm like, see, this is what's wrong with this country. Like,
Yeah.
look at this. And so we just figured I got a TENS machine. And so I just shocked the shit out of myself all the time
Right.
with it. And it seems to be working.
Yeah.
It's working today.
Yeah. No, I guess I say that to say like Hydrodale, I don't know. That was the first time, like it was painful and I needed to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say it bled into maybe NFR, standing up to do a booth,
Uh-huh.
But I could just see how someone would go down that path. Before, it's just like, man, these are crazy dreams. It's not worth it. I can
Right.
stand the pain. But then when the pain was enough, like it was like that was a relief, and I could tell just the moment it kicked in, I was just
Well, I
like,
think
all
there's
right, this is relief. But and so then all of a sudden, I don't know. I guess I could understand how somebody could just keep going with it.
God gave me a stomach governor. Like whether it was the hard drugs in my 20s or the pills in my 40s, I'll get to a point where my stomach will like sell me out and turn on me. And I'll just have like, if you've ever taken an aspirin accidentally on an empty stomach and that burning just hurts,
Yep.
that'll happen to me before I can get too far gone.
Yeah.
So God gave me this governor, and when that happened, it was like, oh my God. But then it got to where I was like, all right, I'll give this a day to rest. Oh, tomorrow, back in the saddle.
Yeah.
But man, I got all that past me, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful that I got a wonderful human that I get to live with that's like, hey, just talk to me. Just talk to me. And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm not showing weakness. I'm the man.
Yeah. Bury it
Yeah.
like a real man.
Yeah. Yeah. Deal with it.
Yeah. Poop with the door open. Yeah, don't talk about emotions.
Oh my God, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, slow down.
So you're just kind of a man. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hey, what years did you rodeo? If I may ask you. I know it's your podcast, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, this
Well,
year, champion.
I've got all the posters, but
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to remember the year I went to like my first pro rodeo, 07 or 8,
really, that's so
something
amazing.
like that.
Because, obviously I listen to your podcast all the time, and you have all of like my childhood heroes on here.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking yesterday, I was telling Brooke, I was like, everybody that Dale hangs with, I had all their posters on my wall on one side and then motocross on the other side.
We just had it'll probably go live by 5 o'clock today, but Leon Coffey.
Oh yes. I saw,
yeah, he was editing it. And then tomorrow morning we'll go to Ty Murray's house.
Awesome.
So that'll be fun.
I did my senior paper in Maypearl, my English class on Ty.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the only 4 pages I've ever written in my entire life.
Yeah.
So, never met him, but
what event did you compete in?
Man, I tried. So I wanted to be a bull rider, but when you're short and fat in junior high, it's just not going to happen. But I wanted to be a bull rider because I just thought it was cool, and I had remember the BRO VHSs,
yeah,
and then the PBR VHSs, and then I had NFR VHS from like 84 to 87, I think. And I could be so wrong because that seems like another lifetime, but Donnie Gay's run.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been earlier than that. I'm sorry if it was. But and I had an uncle that rodeoed. He was a steer wrestler. And I worshipped him. And I worshipped the fact that he would always bring me his back numbers from Cheyenne, from El Paso.
Yeah.
I just had them all over my wall. And that's all I ever wanted to be was a rodeo cowboy. So went to the oh my gosh, what was it called? It was in Mansfield. The oh my God, all my friends are going to kill me. The Cowbell Indoor Arena in Mansfield. Rode some bulls, but I was terrified. I wasn't a rodeo cowboy. I was scared to death, but I just wanted to be that. And then I went to Ronnie Christian's bronc school down in Huntsville my junior year. I was going to be a bronc rider.
Yeah.
That lasted at least a good solid 2 months.
Okay.
And then with my uncle, his name is Lynn Crow, but we all call him By God. By God was a steer wrestler. And so then I would I just want to be a bulldogger. And I'd go to Palmer, Texas one night a week, and then every weekend. And Joey Allman and his brother Brian and their dad Gerald teach me how to be a bulldogger. Yeah. And then, but the thing is, in Maypearl, during my time there, early '90s, all the rodeo. I mean, in Maypearl, By God grew up working for Jim Bynum, who was 4-time world champion. Mm-hmm. So that's why he was a steer wrestler. And Bynum used to always put him up, and send a horse with him. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And I really think that's why music or touring like we do came so easy, because the romanticism of because By God would call me when I was a kid, and he would be in some other state, which to me was like another island somewhere. And they were at a rodeo and fixing to leave and go to another rodeo. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And so I'd try to be a bulldogger, and then that went away because, it was a 30-mile drive. And I might miss a couple bush lights and hanging out with my buddies if I go to Palmer tonight. And so then Army, and then back here. And then when I got to Tarleton, got to rodeo for Bob Doty for a year and traveled with a dude named Clay Bailey, and who was a steer wrestler and taught me a whole bunch. And so I did that for a year, and then I went home, and then I was roping. And my dad built a pen at the house because my roommate at the time is an Abilene kid named Chris Hubbard. And Hubbard and I lived together in Maypearl. And then my dad built us an arena. And so then we just went to jackpots all over Ellis County. And again, my want and desire to travel and go to rodeos was a lot further along than my talent was. Yeah. So I wanted to go rodeo. I wanted to go do it. Right. I didn't want to just go to my dad's house and practice, 5 nights a week. I wanted to go rodeo. And then, after doing that at Tarleton for a year, and then left and just roped all that summer, and then it just kind of fizzled out, and I started playing music. So, God sent my path in another direction. But, man, that's all I ever wanted to do. And that's why when I heard you on Rogan and I started doing back listening to your podcast, I'm like, man, this is everything I've ever wanted to be.
Yeah.
Even at 40, almost 48 years old, I'm still just like, dang, man. Because I tell my kids, I'm like, watch you guys. Pawpaw has a pen at his house in Maypearl, 2.5 hours away. He keeps 75 head of cattle year round. My dad doesn't even have a roping horse anymore. He just keeps it for, by God, and his cronies. And my dad's like, I'm just too old. It's too hot. Put lights up last year just so they could all rope whenever they want to. And I'm like, watch my boys be like Charlie Sampson. Like, there would be the inner city kids that are cowboys, and I don't have anywhere to teach them or take them to a pen.
Yeah.
But
have they taken to it? They
haven't, man. They're too into, modern sports and stuff. But they're fascinated. We watch the NFR, of course, every year, and I'll get down a rabbit hole of YouTube. And my buddy Jesse Brown's bulldogging and been NFR last 3 or 4 years, which is a cool thing. Jesse was a quarterback at Montana State, and we met through my music, me playing up there. And then we just get to chatting one night after the show, and he's like, well, I also rodeo, and now he's been NFR. He's invited me out to NFR a couple times, so I'm really pulling for him. I hope he's going to get that number one.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a very small percentage of people that end up doing this for a living.
Yeah.
And it's a small percentage of people that even try it.
Well, the thing is, I think my father, he's never verbally said this, but just knowing him as close as we are now, I think he always wanted to be a cowboy. Always. But he was, like I said, 9th grade dropout, married my mother, went to work. So
sounds like the makings of a cowboy.
Well, he is I call him cast iron because he's an ass. Like, you're not going to get a lot of love from him.
Right.
But he means well. But he always financially backed my uncle as far as he wanted to go.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. I want to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't in my cards.
Yeah.
But I'm still fascinated by it. And
well, you got to live a similar lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, by God always tells me, because I'll tell him, I'm like, man, the only difference is I get a check at the end of the night. And he goes, that's a big damn difference. I'm like, I understand.
Yeah.
But, the travel side of it and sleeping in the van in our early days, finding a roadside park and just all of us crashing out because we couldn't afford a hotel room, or 7 of us in one hotel room. I was like, I think that's why I loved music so much when we started, just because it was my version of getting to be a rodeo cowboy.
Yeah. No, and same thing with the rodeo. You're going to a party. Mm-hmm. You're on your way to a party, and the people there are ready to have a good time or watch one. And that's what is exciting, I think, about, being on the road. The thing that I feel like is also similar between the musicians and rodeo cowboys, like, to make it something that will last and to truly make a living at it, I think you have to be passionate about the thing, which for you is music and playing music and putting on a show for those people. And for the rodeo cowboy, like, whether it's steer wrestling or bull riding or bronc riding, like, you have to be in love with what happens once you nod your head. And it doesn't matter where it is. If you enjoy going to where it is and being at that party, that's one thing. But I think, and there's a lot of people that enjoy the party part of it and going down the road part of it, and they don't enjoy as much the fight side of it.
That was me. I can honestly tell you as a very immature adult, but it's almost like when I started jiu-jitsu, when I'd have those moments like, do I really like this, or do I like the idea of
That's it.
this?
That's all of it.
And because I remember when Clay and I would go to some open rodeos and we'd be in the slack, and I would just be like, this sucks. Nobody in the stands. Like,
yeah.
And then we're going to another one the same day. Man, we go to Doug Dugan's and do a jackpot. And
yeah.
But I think and when we college rodeoed, I was the dude with the guitar at the campers. And I think that was my thing, is I liked the idea of it. In hindsight, at the time, I didn't know shit.
Bradley Harder retired.
I went to college with Bradley. Bradley and I had a lot of classes together. I haven't seen him in 15 years.
Well, he's got the same laugh that he's always had. That
I wrote my first record finally
recognizable laugh
in our marketing class. Most of my songs off that first record, and Bradley and I forget his roommate's name. They would sit right in front of me, and they'd always be like, Crow, you playing that guitar?
Yeah.
I hadn't talked to him in forever.
Last year, I had a booth in Houston, and he was telling me he started selling insurance. So if you need insurance, call Bradley. But he, Farm Bureau, he was saying, man, because he's still obviously very physically capable, but he's got kids, and he said it's not the bronc riding that I'm retiring from. You know, it's the travel part of it. He said, I still am in love with riding broncs. If they would bring them to me, I would probably still be going.
That's awesome.
And I've thought about that a lot, because I think that's what, you know, he's been to the NFR like 14 times or whatever it is, but that's what I think it takes at the beginning. And then it's obvious to him all throughout, and it was obvious to him because he knows him, even, you know, at his first NFR all the way to his last, and even when he retired. But just, I don't know, that's something I've observed. I've always been in a position for a lot of years. For some reason, I've been in a position where I got to help a lot of people start riding bulls or broncs. And I think maybe because I knew I valued practice, and, you know, there's no replacement for getting on a bucking horse or a bucking bull. Mm-hmm. You know, like you can rope a dummy for team roping, and it's a lot easier to practice. But like for bronc riding, you got to get on a bronc. Gotcha. And for a bull, you got to get on a bull. So I've always valued that, and I've always tried to posture myself close to, in or around a practice ring. And so having access to that, I was always a guy that people reached out to.
I love it. When I watch your videos, I'm like, man, what would my life be if I had a you back in Maypearl when I was
And I really think that's one of the things that keeps a lot of people from it, you know, because you can't get on one or two a month, you know, and I remember helping some, Paul Freeney was a defensive end, you know, why he was playing at Texas A&M. You know, I put him on a bull.
Awesome.
And
you just had my buddy Caleb Francis.
Yeah, Caleb Francis put Caleb Francis on a bull. Like, it's just still happening, you know. And
I love that.
And but watching a lot of these people get started, you know, they're fascinated with it. For some of them, it's a bucket list thing, and most of them it is. And some of them are trying it like, hey, I may want to do this. And that, I think what Bradley had to say is what delineates, you know, someone from just like an adrenaline junkie from somebody who is going to probably turn it into a career, or at least try to.
Right.
And being in love with that moment, or those string of 8 moments, that the mental battle it takes to execute the fundamentals. And
I know
there's a lot of similarities to you musicians.
I can look back and think of that year that I rodeoed for Bob at Tarleton. I went that first semester, but I was on probation because I had never taken an SAT or an ACT because I went straight to the Army. So I had to write a letter, and I was on probation at Tarleton that first semester. But I met Clay, and I was steer wrestling. And something that I think about a lot is when I met all these kids that were, you know, all the guys who roped, the girls who did breakaway, the girls who did barrels, the rough stock riders. Like, these were people who had done this since they were children.
Yeah.
And I was the kid who we team pinned. I had cutting horses, did that. My dad had done that when I was growing up, so I did both of those. So I never got to do a rodeo event, you know, on the reg.
Yeah.
So when I got to Tarleton, I'm like, these are people who, like, they're putting their own wraps on their horses. That's something my daddy did for me because I was a kid when I had horses. And these were people who they'd been riding broncs and bulls and roping and breakaway. They'd been doing this since they were 8 years old, and here I'm 22, and I'm just going to get started. So that was something else too. It's like, man, these are people like real deal.
Yeah.
Do I have what it takes? And I just kind of think in hindsight, I learned that what I was saying earlier, just like everything you just said, like I thought I wanted to, and I still, it was more of a dream in the idea of doing it than, because if I had the drive for steer wrestling, like I had the drive for music, things would be different. Because when I played my first gig, I knew there was no going back. Like, This is what we're doing. I remember my last steer at Doug Dugan's. I'm like, I'm good. I'm gonna sell my horse.
Yeah,
I'm done.
That's good that it was that black and white.
Yeah. Well, no, Clay and I did an open rodeo in Corsicana, and I got on my steer, and that some buck took a hard left, and George was my horse's name, and his back hock caught me right in my kidney, and I couldn't stand up and piss blood for a week.
Dang.
I'm like, I think I'm good. I could barely talk. I couldn't even drive. I couldn't even push the clutch in on my truck. It hurt so bad. So
you mentioned wanting to go rodeo and not wanting to practice 5 nights a week, and I think the blessing with being a rodeo cowboy is that you can't. Nobody tells you what to do, and you can't get fired.
Yeah.
But the curse with being a rodeo cowboy is nobody tells you what to do, and it's not going to get you fired. Meaning that, like, it's all on you. You are your own boss.
Right.
And that's a fine line. When guys come in here and want to be rodeo cowboys, some of them might, the way I act, some of them might think I don't care. Because
see, I don't get that.
I'm not gonna. I guess what I'm driving at is I'm not gonna ask you to get on. I'm not gonna tell you to go to the gym. I'm not gonna, I'll check in and make sure. I'm not gonna force a practice session.
Right.
I'm gonna provide the opportunity, because that's kind of something that comes along with the job here, is that we've got an opportunity you've got an opportunity to be a rodeo cowboy, and so I'm going to provide that once a week, sometimes twice a week practice pin. But I guess what I'm saying is like, you have to be self-motivated.
Right.
And
I definitely did not have that as a teenager. I was all bush light and girls.
It's not the military. It's not, college football, and there's not, like, and there's also the liability side of things. I'm not going to force you to get on this bull, and then you don't want to get on it. And now all of a sudden, instead of getting bucked off because you're trying so hard, you fall off and you're under it, and it steps on you, breaks your leg, and you're like, well, I didn't want to get on in the first place. The last thing because I've entered my brother in a rodeo, and I remember walking in there, the book's closed, and it was a pro rodeo, because he had been and he was in bed late, and it was a time in his life he was kind of partying. And
is he a musician?
He was, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, Leroy. Yeah.
There's the bed late part.
Well, and this was just kind of a snippet, but of his life. We were in college, and I was like, hey, you're entered, and get ready. It's this weekend.
Gotcha.
And he's like, oh, and that was when, we did not turn out. Well, we go there, and of course he's not ready mentally nor physically. Mm-hmm. And he gets bucked off and lands like on top of his head. He's like doing a front flip and then lands like on top of his head. And it scared the crap out of me. And I remember that like it was yesterday, and I'll never do that again with, like, I'm not a football coach.
Right.
I'm a rodeo cowboy, and you're a rodeo cowboy. And if you want to do this, you've got to do it yourself.
That's what By God used to tell me when I would complain about we were roping at my dad's house 5 days a week. And I'm like, I want to go to a rodeo. And he's like, you're not good enough to go to a rodeo. Well, I'm 24. I'm not hearing you.
Right.
Or he's wanting to put in the slow steers, and my dad, I don't know what it's called. He had this mechanism that went out in front of the chute, or in front of the turnout gate, that was like a deal where the steer had to like walk slow. So you could just work on scoring your horse and then go up and slowly rope it and slowly down. And I hated all that. And I wasn't willing to listen.
You just want to go fast, rope,
I just want to get better.
And,
I see these college rodeos, and these dudes are slinging them out there and dropping coils, and boom, I'm not getting like that. So how can I get to a rodeo if I'm just doing this all the time?
Yeah.
And because I was stupid, but again, in hindsight, I can honestly say I just wanted to be at the performances. I wanted to be where the stands were full. I didn't want to be the slack. I didn't want to go to jackpot roping. That was boring. I don't want to watch, 400 teams rope.
Yeah.
And so I just think there's a mental toughness, and those that have it, like, you're not going to force anybody. But if I was one of these kids and I called you every day, you'd probably be like, all right, I like this boy.
Yeah.
Come on.
For sure.
And yeah, I love that, because I see that with my own son, my 13-year-old, because he goes out every morning, he hits 50 balls off the tee before school. He comes home every day, hits 50 balls off the tee. That's his groove. I don't tell him. I don't ask him. I don't do anything. For me getting serious about working out, he does 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 kettlebell squats and lunges every single night. And that's just his thing. I don't say a word about it. You know, even when Mama's like, "You do your workout tonight?" I'm like, "Don't say that to him. That's his thing. Let him do it."
Yeah.
And I just didn't have that. But again, I had two very poor blue-collar working parents who were focused on giving us a better life than they grew up in. And so Rodeo and just didn't have the time.
Yes, sir.
So
yeah.
But I love it, man. Even now watching the Cowboy Channel, I'm so mesmerized by the cowboy way of life. I can quote Lonesome Dove, the book or the movie, whichever one you want to go. We can go toe to toe, baby. And then whenever I watch the Cowboy Channel, especially during the NFR, and you always get a commercial that's talking about the cowboy way of life and a dying breed and this stuff, I almost kind of feel guilty, because my life is over here. I live in the inner city and I play music and my boys skateboard and BMX, but I get down that rabbit hole no, this is what is important. Mm-hmm. This is a heritage. I don't support it like I wish I did. My heart does, but I just don't think to do it because it's not in my everyday life. Like you cowboying, I watch all your videos, man, working cattle. One of my dear friends, Brent Bennett, unfortunately lost his wife last year. And he's a cowboy, and he just picked up and moved to Walden, Colorado, and working on a big ranch. And he's like, I lost my bride. I'm going to do what God made me to do. And he's just cowboying every day, and I follow him. We text all the time, and I'd see that. I'm like, God, I love that so much. Yeah. It's not in the cards for me, but I love that so much.
Yeah. Did you ever feel like I think of a few people young in the industry, some of them later in their career, but it seems as though some guys that do sing country music feel a need to be validated and almost want to try to, I don't know. It's not that they force the cowboy hat, but there's other guys that some do. There's other guys that are just more okay with it. For instance, William Clark Green, I feel like, is just super down to earth about where he's at on the cowboy spectrum. And he and we've talked about it on my podcast with how he treated a cowboy hat, mm-hmm. and he tried it a couple times and it wasn't for him. And so now he's just got, the long hair. But it seems as though there's other people that feel a need to prove themselves a cowboy before they can sing country music. That doesn't sound like maybe that's ever been you.
No, because I don't wear a cowboy hat. And I wore one my entire life until I was probably 23, 24, 25 maybe. But it's just not who I am now. People change and life changes. It's funny because I was overthinking this podcast. I'm very excited to come, and thank you again for having me. But I was just thinking over the last week of different button topics that I wanted to, hope, or at least not I wanted to. Sorry, I didn't mean to come off like.
Well, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about it.
No, but I was just thinking about my life and how it was here. Because when I text you, when I heard you on Rogan, that's when we first talked. Because I text you, I'm like, hey, I just listened to this on the way to Broken Bow, and damn. That was good stuff, bro.
Yeah.
And then, boom, then we became, modern day friends, social media.
Yeah.
And it just, so much of it was like, I used to do that. Oh man, I wish I could do that. So much. And I was thinking this week, I'm like, man, in the skateboard world, the word poser gets thrown around a lot, or in the punk rock world, or old movies about metal and punk, they call posers. I'm like, the cowboy world's probably got more posers than any other genre of anything I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Just cowboy hats and dressing the dress. But if that's what you feel and you love, hell yes.
Yeah.
I've owned my fair share of cinch jeans and Levi's and Wranglers and shit. I'm in junior high. I probably had every color of Wranglers back in the early 90s when colored Wranglers were a thing.
Yeah.
Trust me, guys, it was a thing. Don't look it up. But, when you were saying that, the first two people that came to mind is Cody and Donahue. Cody obviously had a life in rodeo, Donahue ropes, and they get it from a perspective of the inside. I haven't written a lot of rodeo songs. I did after one of yours and JB's podcast here. I actually have a song going about JB that I tried to find in my notes and I couldn't. After about 50 songs, I'm like, I'll just tell him about it. But it's basically about just the cigarette in the chute.
Yeah,
is kind of, and so I'm hoping to get that written in the next X months. But I try not to force anything. I think when I was saying that when I was describing the single, that's coming out of this new record and how it's honest about kind of pretty much crapping on my wife and not meaning to. I think honesty comes through in music, and the guys who write cowboy songs, and you can feel it. And the other ones, you're like, no, this isn't working.
Yeah.
So I agree with you that some try to push it and dress the part and maybe write the songs the part, and then others it just comes pretty natural. I feel like back to Cody Johnson and Casey Donahue, I think when they write cowboy songs, it's just you just feel it, it, like they know what they're talking about.
I guess the reason I bring it up, I've never felt like someone needed permission to sing about it. And it wasn't until I started meeting guys and social media later in life where it, like if you hear that, I'm drawing a blank on what the song was called, but like Bulls and Blood, Dust and Mud, Garth Brooks, like
right.
I never wondered as a kid if he had actually ridden a bull. Like that didn't cross my mind. And even into high school and college, that was a cool song to me. Right. And it was neat that he sang it.
I was the same way. I was a friend.
But I never...
Whatever year I was. But.
And I guess maybe getting to actually meet musicians with my line of work now and having emceed some stuff, I guess maybe it was something that I was eventually going to wonder. I just don't think guys need... Like I was hanging around a young musician who felt like he needed a rodeo, and he never actually admitted to it, but felt like he needed a rodeo so that people would think he was a cowboy, so that he could sing cowboy music. And I don't know, I feel like a person can have respect for the lifestyle, but not necessarily have been 90 points on a bull.
They don't have to be in it or a part of it to respect it and pay homage to it.
You bet.
Yeah. I have a song called Rodeo Gypsy off my first record, and I wrote it straight up about By God and Chris Hubbard, and it's just about going to rodeos.
You bet.
But it's also about being gone and not calling home. And
I do think that having been in the lifestyle will help you write it.
Oh, of course.
Like Chris Ledoux saying there's plenty of time before, but not enough time now. Like any rodeo cowboy knows exactly what he's talking about. You get to the rodeo 2 hours before and you're twiddling your thumbs, but then as that horse walks into the chute, there's no time and you're in a hurry.
Yeah.
And so the anxiety switch button that goes off, like Chris Ledoux felt that and he knew that. And so he
comes back to that honesty in music that you can feel when it's honest.
I guess that's it. So long as you're honest about it.
I've got
that's where people have a problem, I think. Well, when you begin to act like you're Chris Ledoux and you're actually not
Chris Ledoux.
And that's any line of work. That's not just rodeo.
My this producer friend of mine, his name's Dwight Baker. He's done the last couple Josh Abbott records, just did Flatland Cavalry, records a lot of pop music and rock music, but we found him, so we're all using him, and I'm doing a record with him. His wife and my wife are really good friends, so we talk all the time. Well, at least when he'll filter my calls. But he tells me all the time that one record that I did in 2018 that didn't do so hot, he goes, did you feel honest about it? I'm like, no, I felt like I was making the producer I used at the time's record with my songs. He goes, that's why it didn't work. He said, music is honest.
Yeah.
People can feel it and they can see through it, and it's something you can't touch. It's like love, sadness. It's not something you can necessarily touch or grab, but you can just tell. You can tell. Now, if it's a different genre of music that's just made for a good time, that's different. But when you're writing as a singer-songwriter, quote unquote, the honesty just comes through. And so that's exactly what you're saying with if I went out and tried to write, maybe not a cowboy song, but like a rodeo song. I've never been to Cheyenne. I've never been to El Paso. I've never been, I've been to many rounds in Fort Worth, but I've never been in it. That would just it. If I was writing about you, maybe I could sell it as honesty because it's a biography. But if I'm trying to write,
this is what that lifestyle feels like.
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
See,
I mean, maybe I could get away with it a little bit if I could put the words together, but my other friend couldn't do that. And if it's a song that really hits, the honesty's not going to come through, and people are going to see it. And it's just, I think the universe has a way of just like tapping that down, like, And then other people, it would probably be the biggest. If Post Malone did it, it'd probably be the biggest hit this year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I think there's sometimes where it might seem as though people are maybe pandering, and they're just kind of trying to like ride the wave of a trend.
Oh, of course.
So maybe there's a lot of people that are sometimes doing that.
I can't do it. Even the J Beats song, like I've got wherever I find this damn song, I'll send you the piece of it. But it was after one of y'all's podcasts, and then I got down the rabbit hole, and I was just watching his rides and stuff, and the damn cigarette, and I'm like, that's a cool dude, man. Yeah. What a cool cat. Not to mention, great.
Yeah, great bull rider.
Like, I mean, he's all right.
Second best of all time.
Second.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big gap between you and him. But,
that I had occasionally.
But I was putting that together. I listened to you guys, and so I was trying to take what y'all were talking about and his rides and him getting hurt and the cigarette and then the videos. So I was making a biography of it because I wanted to, because it just like, sorry to be clingy, but like it just exudes coolness. And it was just like, and then that
JB,
yes,
yeah.
And that podcast, he was talking about his son, and I was just like, oh, and he's a good dad. Oh shit, look at this.
Yeah.
And then Stephenville, of course, I lived in Stephenville, so of course we're probably best friends.
Yeah.
And so
he just doesn't know it.
He doesn't.
No, I remember one video. People throw rocks at me sometimes about maybe doing a video, and there are certain influencers, that I do think take it too far with certain things, and people will say like just for the views. And well, first off, like anybody in front of a camera probably expects to get some views. I'm not sure why you haven't look at Denzel Washington, in whatever movie. It's just like he's doing that just for the he's doing it just for the views. That's
exactly.
Why there's probably 250 people on production at that movie. They're doing that just for the views, and you're watching it, you're viewing it, for the entertainment. So that's for one, I feel like it's okay to do something quote unquote just for the views. Now, there's a Instagram account I follow called Influencers in the Wild. And it's like they constantly, sometimes it's like a serious thing, like this influencer went to this country and got arrested trying to make a YouTube video and a museum or whatever, and there's a line to be crossed. Absolutely. But I do think it's okay. For instance, Donnie and I made a video, what we think we look like versus what we actually look like, and
that's my life.
And there was this trendy song going, and it's just like, what you think you look like, it's the cool music, and we're riding these horses and we look cool and the camera's real close, and then versus what you think you look like, and the song changes and we're kind of riding goofy or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Hilarious video. I laughed at it. Donnie laughed at it. And we don't even care how many views it gets. We think it's funny. Maybe the world will think it's funny. And so we're in the entertainment business, so we post it, and then this girl commented on Facebook just talking about, kind of for the views mentality, and just that Dale's content has gotten cheesy. And I was like, first off, I've responded to her, and I try not to, but I responded. I said, first off, I've always been cheesy. So
where have you been?
That's not new. Second, I don't care what you think about this video. It's hilarious to me. I don't care if it got 9 views.
Right.
It got a bunch of views, but it just, I wasn't affected by her comment in that moment. I probably would have been years ago, but I love what I do. And my mom, my grandmother, tell this story over the holidays about me shooting across the yard in the middle of the night with my, in 3rd grade. I was on probably 4th grade, but I was in my whitey tighties on a 3-wheeler with a cape on.
Why wouldn't you be?
You know, because I appreciated Captain Underpants comic books.
Yes.
And but I appreciated more than that making those two women laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most fulfilling thing to do something or say something and have people laugh. Like that I just felt
it just brings
fulfilled.
Joy.
Probably
to
the same thing
world.
you feel when you play music.
Man.
And I do think sometimes, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, maybe that record you put out in 18 wasn't fully you, but that's what you do for a living. That's what you enjoy doing. Maybe you put some songs on it that weren't, but I don't think you're a bad guy for that. You know, like that's what people like listening to your music, and you like playing songs that, not that you think you're a bad guy. I'm just kind of trying to relate the two worlds.
I understand, you know, and I'm a complete hypocrite in this next comment, but the people that say that kind of stuff are the people that just wish they were doing it. That's really what it boils down. And I'm like you. I wish, I think it's Rogan that always says he posts and ghosts. I wish I could do that. But I'll let somebody could say 300 positive comments on a post that I put on.
Yeah.
And that one negative, it just bleeds and
maybe,
and grows and festers in my head. And I hate, like, right or wrong, a few weeks ago, this pastor had written about, he had made a comment about the opening monologue of the Olympics.
Yeah, terrible.
I thought it was terrible.
Right.
Especially as a Christian man, I thought it was blasphemy and mockery.
Right.
However, this pastor put it beautifully about just praying for the people as Christ would have prayed for the people.
Yeah, you bet.
And not to judge them, because Christ didn't judge people.
Yeah. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, what he said on the cross.
I posted that pastor's thing and said, God is great all the time. And I got slaughtered.
Yeah.
And I even wrote a couple of them back. I'm like, I guess you missed the point of the faith that I was trying to exude in this.
Yeah.
That we don't have to agree, but we have to love.
Yeah.
And praying for someone, to me, is like better than a hug, a handshake, a high five, or a monetary donation. And I got slaughtered.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you can't win. Because
Matt Chandler and I talked about it. Maybe my podcast before last was, you know, you can love the person and disagree with the ideology.
Of course you can.
You know, like just because you show love to the person, you pray for the person, like that pastor probably said, that doesn't mean you agree with their ideology.
He even said that. He's like, this isn't something I promote or represent or agree with. However, Christ loved us all.
Yeah.
He hung out with whores and thieves and fought the tax collectors and the church because he felt as though they were being disproportionate in their representation of Scripture and God.
Well, there's so many people on both sides
now
that
that's all I was just trying to be like, see, everybody, God is good. God,
Yeah.
and I put, my quote was, God is great all the time. And I was just like, I don't know a kinder statement that I could type other than God is great all the time. And just, so I'm like, you know what? Y'all can have it, man, because I know where I stand and I know where my faith is. And I was just trying to make everybody, I don't even know why I did it. It was a spur of the moment deal, but
whatever he said, you know, moved you and motivated you, and you.
It did, and because then I had the whole social media thing, like maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'm like, no, I should have, because I'm strong in my Christian faith, and that's what I just felt to say. Hey, see, we can still love people and pray for people, and disagree with their actions and their everything. That's kind of the basis of what Jesus did.
Yeah, and.
I don't know. So all that to circle back. Sorry if I rambled on that one, but just to say,
you've kind of been rambling this whole time, to be honest. So it's nothing new.
Man, I've been up since 4:00. You remember that?
Not a morning person.
That musician's time thing your brother had, and so I don't know, man. I think social media, as much as I'm on it, and as much as we love it, and it's given opportunity for so much, and marketing and announcements for shows and wonderful podcasts and videos, and it's also just a damn curse.
Well, it's all I have as far as like, I'm not, I agree with you. There are, for me, that is my job, you know, and I musicians I got a lot of respect for, but there's just, you've got the show that you're playing and then the apparel on the side. And so your show helps promote the apparel. And then, but my show is on social media. So I have to deal with it a lot more, but
I understand.
You made a comment about like there may be where you wanted to be. Co brought up a good point that there's so many people out there, and I'm sure you've experienced it having been in the game for so long, like Co has, that there's so many people out there, they kind of fall off of being a fan or, on that Bart Crow train because you're no longer their thing.
Oh, dude, the Texas scene is, I don't know how much it is now because being older and kind of being the older generation of this scene, if you will. But I know like when Randy got his record deal and then his next record on Mercury was fantastic. Yeah. But of course, everything was like sell out. He sold out. I'm sure Co gets it. I'm sure
Cody
Parker gets it. Cody gets it. And
Cody
they're still
Johnson.
the same person writing the same exact style of music and wonderful songs. I'm from the thought, and I say this all the time, I am so happy for these. I've never met Co Wetzel in my life, and I'm so happy for him.
Yeah.
Because I think the world is big enough for us all to exist, and for somebody to come out of our genre, he's just bringing more attention to this Texas music scene, and I think that is absolutely freaking amazing.
Well, Kojo was about to put out an album, so wrote this album as an independent, and they were like, hold on, let's see if we can work out a deal together. So puts it out with, gets the record deal, then puts out the same album that he was going to put out anyway. And yeah, it's just like, people are just like, oh, I like his old stuff when he was independent. It's just like, no. This was the same one. I mean, it's the same Kojo.
Why don't you root for your guy to win the World Series?
Right.
That's like, it's like when Tough won the world. I hate him. Yeah. He's number one. He sold out.
Right.
Oh my God, this is what we were aspiring to do the whole time.
Yeah.
Like we want to be better and bigger. And I'm sure Kojo is totally comfortable with the haters because if I looked out and had arenas and stadiums full of people, I'd probably be like, well, sorry.
Yeah.
But it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. I want you to succeed. I just met you today, first time in person, and I hope this becomes the biggest podcast on the planet. I think there's enough slices of pie for everybody. And to not want somebody or to have some kind of disdain or dislike for anything in entertainment, sports. You met somebody when they were working their asses off trying to get to a spot, and then to not like them because they became successful or it worked. Yeah. You helped them get there.
Yeah.
Have you lost
I think
your
most
damn
people
mind?
don't notice it. I think there's so many people that, they might be like that with everything. Like they find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and and then just internally, the way that they operate is when the new wears off, they're looking for the flaws, Yep. And when it's no longer their little secret thing that they get to showboat to the world, and so I feel like it's probably something that someone doesn't even know they're doing, but the world does look for so many.
I've got a group of friends, my best friends on the planet that I've known since the day I was born, and they despise Zach Bryan. And so I asked them, like, why? I'm like, okay, you know why I didn't like him? Because my wife plays him on repeat all the time, and I tell her she'd leave me for him.
Yeah.
But I went to the gym and listened to it, and holy crap.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's real good.
Yeah.
And so I hit them back. I'm like, I don't think you guys have listened. And it's just because it's popular, so they're going to dislike it.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like...
And they don't want to be lumped in with the masses.
Holy moly, man.
Yeah.
Come on. What if that was me? You guys, and I tell them all the time, like, I know you haven't heard my last 3 records because I'm just Bart, from Maypro, your bud. But what if that happened to me? You going to sell me out? Yeah. No, the ass is going to be calling for tickets.
Yeah.
So...
Right.
That's why I don't want that kind of success. I don't need that stress and pressure.
Well, I think it all circles back to pride, personally. So pride is competitive, and there's just to me there's a lot of indicators of pride versus humility, but one of the more humble and successful people that I know is Trevor Brazil. And one thing he talked about, it's crazy that we had a 2-hour podcast, hour and a half, whatever it was, and we got into the topic of pride and humility. And some of the things that he was saying, I read this book. It's called Humility. It's written in the 20s by this man named Andrew Murray. And so when you read it, you know that it was written a long time ago, just the way it's worded is, and the way the sentences are structured. It's not somebody that speaks in 2024, And so it's hard to read, but I love it. And it's so deep. And a lot of the things that Trevor was saying were just in line with random chapters from this book about humility that just blew my mind, and it made me so much more a fan of Trevor. But one thing that he talked about was whenever he does lose, if you can't be happy for the guy who did win, that was something that was going to weigh you down and make you more of a failure down the road. And just the way he talked about his mentality that wrapped around a loss for the night, and how you need to turn and be excited that this other person had an opportunity and took the opportunity to win. And I don't know that I think a proud person has a hard time doing that.
I would imagine so. And I think that's the beauty of rodeo in general, because when you were just saying that, I was just thinking to those BRO and the first PBR VHS tapes that I had, where that was always talked about, the camaraderie, when these bull riders would be like, so-and-so got bucked off tonight, but that's his buddy. Look at him cheering him on.
Yeah.
And another cowboy runs out the arena and hugs whoever just, scored 90 on a bull.
Yeah.
And hugging him. It's that's just.
And sometimes I think pride and humility, that they exist in rodeo just like they do everything. And one thing that I do like about the sport, where it helps us have that, is, it is me against my animal for the most part. And so there is another layer where I'm sure it's a little harder for instance, UFC fighters, where it is me against you, period.
Right.
And
I see that.
So there's this built-in animosity that a lot of guys have no matter what, which makes me have so much more respect for the guys that are able to look past that and still have, the humble handshake. But with rodeo cowboys, we've got a layer between us where, hey, I got to conquer this animal. And I was talking to my guys behind the chutes. I think there's something to it where, maybe if you do fail and then you're watching the remaining guys that are entered ride and compete that night, if you have this, you're out. You bucked off. 0 points. You're not getting paid. And then you've got 3 or 4 more guys after you that are going. If you have this slight internal celebration when they buck off too, I don't think that's a good thing.
I'm with you.
I think and that's what Trevor's talking about. Now maybe there's always exceptions, and maybe you're going to, if this particular guy does buck off, maybe you go to the circuit finals or you go to the NFR or whatever, and in that moment you're whatever. But I'm thinking just day in and day out.
Right. Generally
if that's your default, that you buck off when maybe you shouldn't have, you had a bad go, and then you are glad that everyone else failed also, I don't think that's healthy. And I think it's connected to pride. And I
agree with that. Uncle Bob said it best in Urban Cowboy. That pride, hell of a thing.
Yeah.
Said what did he say? Without Bud's Aunt Maureen, he'd just be another, what did he say? Pile of dog in a cantaloupe patch. That pride. Pride will get you. I'm with you. It's like in the music world. Occasionally a band will mess up and maybe they drank too much and they just have a horrible show, or somebody lost their cool. Yeah. I don't find that humorous. I find it terrible to watch, because most of these guys I may not be the best of friends with, but they're my acquaintances. If nothing else, they're my colleagues, and I don't want to see that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to see when somebody bombs. I want to see these bands kicking butt.
Yeah,
all of them,
or
every
maybe
single one of them. That's why with us, not being in a bus and being stationed behind a venue all the time, we're in a Sprinter and we go to the hotel and come back. I don't get to watch openers, their whole show, but I try to get and watch some of it. And I make sure to do my damnedest to thank them all for letting us play with them. And us all just like, we're all in this together. Just because I'm going on after you, that doesn't mean squat. I've just been doing it longer, period, end of story.
Yeah, I did just get that out of my shoe.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't know why there was a toothpick in my shoe. It distracted you. I saw you look at it, but
interesting.
All day I've been
I have 4
wondering
boys, so nothing surprises me.
What's in my shoe? And turns out it was a toothpick.
I want to see everybody just do great. I'm not one of the guys that, and I've had players over the years, and sometimes you can kind of get into, locker room talk and be like, oh my God, you hear that band? Oh, blah. And then I feel terrible about if I've ever done that. And I can't tell you the last time I have, if I have, but I want everybody just to do good.
Yeah.
Like there's enough of the pie for all of us. And it goes back to like, you're talking about Co and Kojo and Donahue and, every band that's like just massacring it out there. And when I say just like selling mega tickets and playing arenas and Parker McCollum, look at the stuff he's doing. I am so happy, and I'm not friends with those guys, but I see it. And I'm like, hey, I'm part of that system too, and I'm so proud of them.
Yeah,
I'm so happy for them.
I think that's good
because
I would
love to. I would love to be on that, have those numbers, but I'm cool where I'm at. I am so happy. God has gifted me beyond anything I ever dreamt of.
Yeah.
When I pray every night, I tell the Lord, I am the richest man on the planet.
Yeah.
So I got those 4 babies in there that worship me, and I got a wife that's blind that loves me.
Yeah.
And I am totally cool with that. I am in a happy spot, but I'm so happy for everybody that's winning. And those that are still slugging it out and working hard, just keep on going.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Everybody, you guys need to go check out this EP, this single coming out in September, and check out Bart Crow. Check out the apparel. You got the merch online. Come over here and read that on the
Dear
mic.
Lord, give me strength. God.
Yeah, read that.
Oh, where's my glasses?
He's 47. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Oh, Lord, bless me indeed and enlarge my territory. May your hand be with me and give me strength so I may not cause evil.
There you go. I have, yeah, that's it. I my advice I usually go with is laughter is the best medicine unless you're treating diarrhea.
Sometimes even that helps.
Yeah.
If you can't control one end, may as well just let the other one laugh.
Yep. There you go. So we're on to the next one. You guys check out Bart Crow and go download all of his music, all those albums, and follow him on Instagram. I'm Dale Brisby. I'm on to the next one. So is Bart. Pow, pow.